It is early March in 1935, and Dr. Bach has come to realize that the 12 healers and 7 helpers are not the end of the journey. He is setting out on a new path of discovery. This time, the flowers he will find are not in answer to a theoretical plan when he has observed a pattern of behavior in other people. This time, the process followed his own emotional experiences. Nora Weeks wrote that for some days he had been suffering from severe inflammation of the frontal sinuses with agonizing pain and persistent headaches. He felt desperate and felt that he was losing control of his mental state. He went walking in the lanes around Sotwell, just as he had when he found wild oat. This time he found CherryPlum in flower, and picking some of the flowering twigs, he prepared a new essence. And this brought him relief from pain. The selection of CherryPlum must have been a spontaneous choice, informed by his reaction to seeing the tree in flower. In terms of the language of flowers, there is little that Bach could have told us. The choice seems almost accidental, except that is not the case, or so I believe, and so I experience it. CherryPlum is the first wild blossom of the year. After the dark days of winter, it blazes with light. The blossoms are intensely white, and like all rosaceae, they have 5 petals. When the weather is dry and warm, they are very attractive to bees. You can hear them buzzing on the flowers from 10 meters away. They are excited by the early nourishment of nectar. This combination of sweetness and light draws the heart and eases the mind. It is a very visible expression of the returning light. There is no easy scientific explanation as to why this is important to us, nor why it has the effect of easing mental trauma. Bach speaks of CherryPlum being linked to a fear of doing dreaded things, and, as we shall see, several of these new remedies bring us out from the trauma of darkness into the light of calm. At this point, I would like to introduce something which is purely speculative, a subject for which I have no scientific evidence of any kind. But if you are in a troubled state of mind, it is a common experience that walking in the garden or the woods can bring relief. It is as though the plant has the capacity to ease our personal trauma just by our being there. We all know how a distressed child can be comforted by a loving touch. Indeed, I saw that just recently when a child had fallen over and his mother just gently rubbed each arm and leg. It's the same with CherryPlum. Dr. Bach entered into the passive force field of the flowering tree, and it offered him a message that helped to relieve his fears and trauma. And if we look at the tree, the flowers are the dominant element. We can see little structure in the stems and branches. They're almost black by contrast, and appear disorganized and irregular. So the emotional state is rather chaotic. That suggests that the CherryPlum state is, by its very nature, moving towards loss of control and disorganization. When flowering, the leaves are still in bud, so there is no structure in the thinking which can help to calm the fears. We learn something particularly interesting when we consider the root structure, the earth element for CherryPlum. It is here that we see the future at work in terms of the language of plants. This is because CherryPlum self-propagates through the root system. It sends up suckers and so creates a family of surrounding trees, all linked back to the parent. Interestingly, the same happens with both aspen and elm, the next two essences in the second 19. It suggests that the strength of this remedy lies in the process of rooting ourselves into the physical world and practical matters. So while the flowers can inspire us, it is the return to the practical physical world which makes for change. Maybe we can look at it in this way. If I'm in a CherryPlum state, the best way to earth out the negative energetic forces is to get down to earth, quite literally putting our hands into the soil when gardening or planting flowers. This has the effect of allowing an electrical discharge, earthing out the body to help rebalance the energetic system. CherryPlum also has quite a successful process of propagation by seeds from the cherries, the fruits. But not every tree produces fruit. And when it drops, it rarely gets planted as a seed. Squirrels love to steal the fruit, but they're not inclined to bury the stones. They prefer acorns from the oak trees. One other thing should be noted here. The way to view the form of the plants, which Dr. Bach chose for the 12 healers and 7 helpers and the second 19, is different in every group. With the 12 healers, which are the 12 type remedies, we see a clear delineation of the type in the way the plant grows. That can be fast, strong and upright growth of impatiens, or the languid, unstructured stems of clematis. With the 7 helpers, the story is related rather more to the landscape and the environment in which the essence is made, as we saw with gorse and heather, for instance. Now, with the second 19, the story is more about the complexity of the life form, more about the way we can experience the presence and identity of that species. We will see more of this in due course.